Canada didn't protest. It didn't wave flags and threaten. Rather, Canada operated undercover, passing 7 bills with precision surgical strikes, and then disappeared. The result? 6 American states now sit and watch jobs disappear, exports decline, and industries careen toward disaster. This isn't political drama or late-night news spin. This is a real economic shift, fast, targeted, and devastating. And if you're in Florida, Michigan, Texas, or even a quieter state like Minnesota, the ripple effects might already be reaching your doorstep. Within 6 months' time, more than $12 billion have vanished. Trucking routes are down by 37%. Canadian tourists, one-time salvation to nearly all United States cities, have virtually disappeared. Meat, oil, technology, and even electricity are being rationed in ways most Americans never dreamed of. So what did Canada do then? And why are some U.S. states taking the brunt of the damage when others go untouched? That's what this video is going to break down. We're going to do it law by law, state by state. And if you are one of these zones, this is not just a story, it's a warning. Before we get started, like this video, subscribe for more in-depth analysis like this one, and leave a comment if you've already witnessed these changes where you are. Now here's where it gets juicy. In just 6 weeks, Canada systematically rolled out 7 potent new regulations. None of them flashy, none of them headline-grabbing, but all of them a precision-targeted punch in the face to the American economy. These were not threats or words that will never be acted upon. These were actual, binding policies designed to guard Canadian interests while exposing American weaknesses, and the impact is already being felt. Let's count them up. Attacks on digital services by American tech giants Google and Meta. A Travel Safety Act advising Canadians to stay away from certain U.S. states, reducing tourism overnight. A strict import sanitation ban that closes out American meat and produce under new Canadian regulations. An Energy Export Licensing Act capping sales of electricity to U.S. states. A tourism and media shield wall keeping federally funded U.S. travel destination ads off the airwaves. A Border Rights Defense Act capping cooperation with U.S. immigration officials. And most boldly, an automatic tariff retaliator. Any tariffs on Canada by the U.S. get an immediate counterblast of equal measure within 72 hours. Alone, they all sound like modest trade policy. Together, however, they form a legal firewall, forcing the U.S. to deal with vulnerabilities it never thought Canada would shoot at. And the states most dependent on Canadian trade, energy, agriculture, or tourism are the ones that are already suffering. Let's start counting them down, one at a time. 6th, Minnesota. This is not only a border state, it's a trading partner deeply committed to Canada. But that marriage is dissolving. Energy first, Minnesota has long relied on Manitoba hydroelectric power. But with Canada's new export licensing law, that supply is no longer guaranteed. Each megawatt must now be licensed, and those licenses prefer countries with strong, cooperative trade ties. Right now, the U.S. does not qualify. The fallout? Northern Minnesota could see electricity prices increase by 15 to 20%. That's a tough blow for families already teetering on the brink, and for small companies struggling to stay afloat. And that's just the beginning. The North Shore and Boundary Waters used to welcome tens of thousands of Canadian visitors every summer. But now, since the Travel Safety Designation Act came into force, areas in Minnesota are officially labeled. The impact has been immediate. Canadian reservations fell 31%. Campgrounds, lodges, and outdoor shops claim to be experiencing their worst summer in more than 10 years. The digital economy isn't safe either. Technology and ad firms based in Minneapolis are losing Canadian clients with the advent of new taxes and strict data regulations. And how about Minnesota's traditional exports of machinery, ore, and iron? Formerly unencumbered by borders, they now languish in delays, extended inspections, and outright rejection under Canada's import sanitation ban. This is not tension, this is disruption. Quiet, legal, and retaliatory. And for Minnesota, it's only the beginning. Number 5, New York. A state marked by world power, economic clout, and cultural appeal. But even giants get knocked off, and Canada has just shaken New York to its core. Start with tourism. Before these laws, over 3.5 million Canadians visited New York each year. They booked rooms in Manhattan, occupied restaurants in Buffalo, and flooded shopping malls in Niagara Falls. But with Canada's new advisories, areas of New York are now considered politically unstable. The result? Canadian bookings have dropped by 28% over a period of less than 1 year. And then there's promotion. The Tourism and Media Shield Act has done away with all federally subsidized marketing of American destinations, including New York. That means no subsidized travel packages, no tour groups, and no Canadian-sponsored visibility on the world stage. The financial sector is not immune either. Canada's digital platform tax is driving regulators away from US-based data platforms. Wall Street institutions are seeing Canadian contracts disappear, especially in digital advertising, fintech services, data infrastructure, and cross-border commerce. And trade. New York exports over $17 billion worth of goods to Canada each year, from electronics to prepared foods. But under the new sanitation prohibition, shipments are being delayed, held up for further inspections, or rejected outright. New York prospered on international connections for decades. But with Canada quietly building legal walls instead of bridges, those connections are unraveling, and the cracks are starting to show. Number 4, Iowa. A state better known as rural, farm-oriented, and neglected. But in this latest trade war, it's in the sights. But in Canada's new economics Bible, Iowa is suddenly ground zero for trade retaliation. For years, the state was the nation's top exporter of soybeans, corn, and pork, and a regular customer was Canada. Not anymore. Under Canada's ban on importing unsanitized pork, shipments are being turned away for feed additives and hormone treatments that do not pass today's Canadian standards. Whole truckloads of product are idle or turned back at the border. Farmers are watching thousands of pounds of product spoil in warehouses or being sold at a loss on secondary markets. The impact does not stop at meat. Corn and soybean exports are taking a heavy hit. New pesticide rules mean crops Iowa relies on no longer qualify for Canadian sale. Grain elevators in rural counties are stacking high, with no place to send the harvest. And that's only the beginning. Fertilizer prices are skyrocketing due to license restrictions under the new Energy Export Licensing Act. Canadian businesses are abandoning co-op deals, and ethanol plants are cutting back operations or shutting down. The ripple effect goes out into rural communities. Packaging factories are cutting back operations, seasonal jobs are disappearing, and even local school boards are experiencing revenue shortfalls as farmers' revenues collapse. Iowa did not have a glamorous economy, but it was steady. Now the very bedrock on which it was established is crumbling, with no federal support in sight. Number 3, Texas. The oil state, energy export, and invincible pride. Even the Lone Star State is being pulled into Canada's low-profile economic war, and the price is mounting quickly. Start with energy. Texas exports massive amounts of refined petroleum and liquefied natural gas overseas, and Canada was a principal customer. But under the Energy Export Licensing Act, Canadian firms now need politically motivated approvals to purchase American energy. When they are given, they come slowly, selectively, and are harder to get. Several refineries in Texas have already lost tens of millions in contracts. The once mighty energy industry is now running into unexpected opposition. Agriculture is also in their sights. Texas beef, citrus, and cotton are regularly rejected on Canada's import sanitation ban, especially shipments that include hormone use or chemical contamination. Canadian retailers are retreating as a result of liability and safety concerns. Products that used to dominate shelves, Texas oranges, for example, are now being pushed aside by foreign imports. Tourism is also unraveling. Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio have long relied on Canadian snowbirds and retirees. But the Travel Safety Designation Act is now warning Canadians to avoid certain southern states, including Texas. Canadian visitor traffic is down more than 35%, with hotel bookings and rentals declining in major metros. And Canada's trigger tariff automatically delays long-term arrangements with Texas vendors, turning a once-booming trade relationship into a lawyer's minefield. Texas is rapidly losing ground. Number 2, Michigan. The industrial heart of America and the informal gateway between the two nations. Michigan and Ontario existed in virtually perfect harmony in trade, tourism, and culture for decades, but that relationship is now breaking. The hardest hit is in automobile manufacturing, Michigan's economic driver. Canada's automatic tariff trigger hits Detroit directly. Whenever the U.S. hikes tariffs, especially under the new 2025 trade deals, Canada retaliates in 72 hours. The first to take a hit are auto parts, aluminum, and machinery. Orders are being cancelled, costs are rising, and Canadian consumers are searching Europe and Asia for alternatives. Tourism also is a quiet casualty. Canadian tourists who once flooded Traverse City, Detroit, and the Great Lakes are now shunning them. The Travel Safety Designation Act discourages travel to parts of Michigan because of political instability and security concerns. Ontario border crossings have fallen more than 40%. Lakefront hotels and shopping malls are hurting, and even agriculture is hurting. Michigan's apples, dairy foods, and packaged foods are being held or turned back under the import sanitation ban. Pesticide controls, labeling bills, and packaging controls are slowing goods legally, but ruthlessly. Neither is the tech sector immune. Ann Arbor businesses are losing business with Canadian businesses and universities as platform taxes and emerging data rules cause it to be harder and harder to justify partnerships. Michigan isn't just economically strained, it's betrayed. A seamless partnership that was once there is now filled with roadblocks, and the face of America's doorway to Canada is eroding. Number 1, Florida. Where formerly Canada's winter playground, Florida is now the biggest casualty of this quiet economic war. Canadian snowbirds have made decades of pilgrimages to Florida beaches, resorts, golf clubs, and condos. They sent over $6 billion annually, creating tens of thousands of seasonal employment positions. That stream is evaporating quickly. Florida has been marked a Tier 2 warning area under Canada's Travel Safety Designation Act, advised for political unrest, medical risks, and escalated gun violence. Canadian insurers are silently pulling long-term stay coverage, resulting in an extreme 42% reduction in long-term Canadian tourists. Whole rental neighborhoods in Naples, Sarasota, and Fort Lauderdale are half vacant. Snowbird havens are turning into ghost towns. Tourism advertising is also eliminated. The Tourism and Media Shield Act ensures that Canadian government-funded promotions for American destinations, like Disney World, Miami, and the Keys, are prohibited. Travel agencies cannot package Florida holidays with subsidies or inducements, further decreasing demand. While this is painful, the citrus industry in Florida is also suffering. Canada rejected substantial shipments for pesticide guideline violations, and the state's $9 billion orange economy has warehouse backlogs, falling prices, and reduced demand. The cruise industry is not excluded either. With added costs from Canada's digital taxes and travel advisories being in place, Canadian bookings out of the ports in Florida plummeted. Florida isn't just losing tourists, it's losing trust. And in 2025, that may be the one thing it can't afford to lose. Canada's new laws aren't temporary, they're structural. And for these 6 states, the fallout is only beginning. If you're already noticing the signs, speak up. Drop a comment. Share this with someone who needs to know. And don't forget to subscribe because this story is far from over.